Who is the most badass person to have ever lived? Giles Moore-Waite Corey was pretty badass. Refused to testify at the Salem witch trials. So they pressed him, i.e., they piled rocks on top of him as torture to force him to testify that his wife was a witch. They piled rock after rock on top of him. His last words were more weight. Then he died. Rotmisters wit old Pilecki. He purposely made himself be caught and thrown into Nazi death camp in Auschwitz to infiltrate it and organize underground resistance and do general recon. He then escaped with another prisoner to fight in Warsaw Uprising. Joe Medicine Crow, the last warchief of the Crow. He completed all the ritual rites to become warchief while fighting in WW2, which included taking an enemy's weapon, touching an enemy without killing him, leading a war party and stealing an enemy's horse. He stole 50 from the SS. Private Desmond Doss. He refused to use a gun but carried 75 men to safety, including 2 of the wounded Japanese soldiers. On the other side, used his medical knowledge to save their lives. He is the only conscientious objector to win the Medal of Honor as awarded by President Harry S. Truman. Galvarino. He was a Mapuche warrior whose hands were amputated by Spanish conquistadors. His response? He rigged blades to his wrist stumps and led a rebellion against the Spanish. There are a lot of good people mentioned in here for various reasons, but I'll throw out 2 more. People. First, the unknown Viking at Stamford Bridge. He held off the entire English army until they floated a soldier under the bridge to stab the Viking in the testicles. Dude was straight stacking bodies before getting stabbed in the no-no spot. Second is Norman Borlaug. Norman was not a great warrior but a scientist. He developed a variant of wheat that had a higher yield and wouldn't fall over, so harvests would be greater. He has saved countless lives from dying of starvation. My grandmother. Her husband died of heart disease in 1948, leaving her to raise 8 children between the ages of 9 months and 13 years old. She was a saint. Teddy Roosevelt was shot in the chest, determined it was not fatal, and proceeded to deliver a speech that lasted over an hour. Simo Häyhä. Christopher Lee is a good contender. Look up Sir Ranulph Fiennes, explorer and all-around badass, and only within the last generation. First to visit both North and South Pole, crossed Antarctica by foot, war hero. During an expedition in the Arctic got frostbite and cut his fingers off with a saw. Had a heart attack in 2000. But ran 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days 3 years later. Pure iron in my opinion. Alexander the Great. My mom. Having to deal with my raging abusive alcoholic cunt of a father yet always being there for me. The Viking at Stamford Bridge. Jack Churchill. Went into battle armed with a broadsword, a bow and arrow, and bagpipes, in WW2, against Nazis. Ernest Shackleton. I think that Terry Fox has to be up there. To run a marathon every day on Marathon of Hope, on one leg and a crappy prosthesis, while riddled with cancer is beyond anything I can understand. Imagine the courage and determination that required. Check your mirror and you'll have your answer. Andre the Giant. A badass and a gentle giant at the same time. Harriet Tubman. You are. Maybe not in a traditional sense. But Stephen Hawking. Dude wouldn't let something as trivial as ALS stop him from becoming an accomplished physicist. He essentially had to do all the math in his head, without the ability to write down notes as he worked. Anne Bonny. She was an Irish pirate, and she was cool. Teddy Roosevelt was a badass. Any enslaved person who said fuck this and ran for freedom. Mr. Rogers. A lot of unknown women. My mom. Mark Summers, the creator of the game show Double Dare. You may be wondering what's so badass about this. The thing no one knew at the time is that he had debilitating OCD with a focus on cleanliness. And he created and hosted Double Dare as a form of DIY exposure therapy. Mad respect. I nominate Gao Cao, a Chinese soldier in the 6th century. He was so fierce even the Xianbei warriors from the north were afraid of him. In one battle, he got shot all the way through the body with 3 arrows and kept fighting. Boudica, seriously a badass. Look her up. Hugh Glass or Lawrence Oates. Christopher Lee. Saruman. Scaramanga. Dracula. Dooku. Metalhead. WW2 Special Ops Nazi hunter. Fluent in multiple languages. Genghis Khan. Chesty Puller. Robert Smalls. Bro escaped slavery by stealing a Confederate boat and then ran for office. Sir Christopher Lee. Change my mind. I'll wait. You're all wrong, it's Betty White. Chuck Norris. Lincoln. Grew up with the brawn and balanced it with the brain. I hear the jokes, but still. I'll always stand by Anne Boleyn. She manipulated an infamous king into turning away from his beloved religion. Kill his supporters who objected Cardinal Wolsey. And broke with the church to marry her. She's usually seen as conniving. A witch and evil. But in a male-dominated world she cut out her own path and went from low-born to the Queen of England. She's such an interesting person in my opinion. Louis Zamperini. Bruce Lee. Can't believe I didn't see him yet. Think of how many badass people never will be mentioned here cause history forgot about them. Leonid Rogozov. First man to perform surgery on himself. Took him 2 hours to remove his appendix without seeing what he's doing. And closed his own wound. Jeff Lebowski. Chuck Yeager was a badass too. Teddy Roosevelt. The man did it all. Plus he was shot in an assassination attempt. Yet continued on with his speech for 45 minutes. Mary. Start a whole religion just to avoid admitting to your husband you cheated on him. Chuck Norris. Ha ha ha. Nicholas Winton helped 669 children escape the Nazis. His efforts went unrecognized for 50 years. In 1988, while sitting as a member of a TV audience, he suddenly found himself surrounded by the kids he'd rescued. John Williams. He scored the soundtrack to almost all of pop culture. Ned Kelly. Lemmy.